Welcome to the Phillip Wylie Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Phillip Wylie.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Phillip Wylie Show. I'm very, very excited today to have Mubix on. Mubix is one of the first hackers or pen testers I was following before and during the beginning of my career. So I was fortunate to get to meet Mubix at Texas Cyber Summit in 2022 for the first time. I actually saw you at at DEF CON probably back in 2019, but I really didn't want to bug you.
But come up. Not that scary.
Yeah, but yeah, I know some people like yourself are getting approached by a lot of people, and sometimes you just want to respect people. But good to finally have gotten to meet you at Texas Cyber Summit.
Yeah, it was great to meet you too.
So why don't we start out, because I have all my guests share their hacker origin story. If you wouldn't mind sharing yours, kind of how you got started and kind of what you're doing these days.
Okay. So I kind of have a split timeline here. So one piece of it is when I was a kid. And so the story I like to talk about is, and one I consider kind of my origin, is on like console games, right? So a computer per se, and so we had consoles when I was growing up, like the regular Nintendo and the Super Nintendo and NES, we didn't have a Sega, but like there was, let me mute that. There was a sorry, I don't know how to do this live, but I have a few computers in my room, and so some of them might be dinging and bonging while we go through this. I'm sorry.
I know.
So there was a thing called a Game Genie back then, and a Game Shark. These two different products basically allowed you to cheat at video games. It would go in between the console and the game itself, and I found it really, really fun to do that, right? Like, and it wasn't the fact that it was cheating. It wasn't the fact that I could get to the end faster. It was the fact that I could modify the rules. So I wasn't trying to beat anyone else. I wasn't trying to like get to the end faster and brag. It was more at least in my head, it was the bending of the rules of the reality of the game. And one of the cool features of Game Shark was that you could essentially make your own cheats. So inside of the Game Shark, it allowed you to put in hex codes for memory. At least I didn't know this at the time, but memory addresses of the game. And then you could put a value that you want locked in on that memory address. So if you could figure out where the memory address, and this was before ASLR and all that stuff, so that it's all static. If you could find the memory address where your health was stored, you could lock that in at 100 or whatever, and the Game Shark would essentially force it to stay that way. So if you wanted to find, inventory item 2 and make it go from 1, health potion to 1,000 health potions, you could do that. It just took some work. And so I didn't know this at the time, but that was really like the beginnings of my reversing, or at least like entry level reversing skill set. And fast forward, what, another 10 years or so, after I went in the Marine Corps, went over to Okinawa, Japan, came back, went to Quantico. And I, at Quantico, Virginia, I was in the incident response, the Marine Corps CERT, essentially. And um, and I was learning all about this hacker stuff. And this was in 2005. So at, you know, it's well beyond the start, essentially, of the hacker community. So I was a relatively newbie in the world. And luckily, I found this podcast called Hack 5. And they were in my area. So they were throwing a party or something like that. And I was like, oh, I could drive down to this thing. It's not that far. And because I couldn't afford DEF CON, I couldn't afford all the other things because I was lowly enlisted in the Marine Corps. And so I drove down to this party and met Darren Kitchen and Wes and all of the other ones, Harrison and so on. And we hung out. I talked about some of the USB stick stuff that I had because I was really frustrated with how I had to download things at different places, and the speed of the internet at the time wasn't super great. And so I kept everything on a portable USB stick and changed things to be portable. So anyways, long story long, I met them, learned some more hacker stuff, really through the incident response at work, as well as through Hack 5. I learned both sides of the fence and really fell in love with pen testing and red teaming, and that whole concept, just because it, like I said, at that Game Shark stage, it bent the rules. It changed the rules. It said, this is what everyone thinks reality is, and let's find out what it really is. So that's kind of my origin story. From there, I just became more and more better friends with the Hack 5 crew, and finally got a job in pen testing. Once I got out of the Marine Corps, but I didn't really have any other experience in that. I didn't have a degree. I didn't have a cert. Well, I had the Security Plus through the Marine Corps. So I had a Security Plus, and that's about it to get my first pen test job. So that's kind of my origin story.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, big fan of the Hack 5 stuff too. That could have been one of the reasons how I found you through the videos that you were doing for Hack 5, possibly.
Yeah, Metasploit Minute was a lot of fun. I will say that recording those was rough. I would do an entire season in a single weekend because I had normal work. So I had to fly in on Friday afternoon, Friday night, spend all of Saturday and half of Sunday kind of recording, then fly home. And so getting 10 episodes done in a weekend is always, we got up in the morning real early, went all the way through, spent all the way until midnight to get stuff done. I was pretty spent after each of those.
Well, I bet. So how hard was it to get used to being on camera?
Oh man, that is one of the things. Darren is a natural, and so I find pen testing very easy because it just clicks for me. And Darren in front of a camera is like that. And so he's very, very nice and very cordial, but you can tell he gets frustrated when it's not as easy for someone else that it is for him, as we all do in our specific specialty. I'm not calling him out on anything, but but it is very hard to get comfortable in front of a camera when there's no one there. I'm okay talking to a crowd of people, It could be 100,000 people, and 5,000 people, and be 20 people. But I need that energy back. But talking directly to a camera with no feedback, no, like, if you crack a joke, nothing, like, that's rough. So getting comfortable in front of a camera is one of the harder points of that whole thing.
Yeah, what I find most difficult is when it's by yourself. When I'm interviewing someone on a podcast, or even if it's back during COVID when everything was virtual, that wasn't so bad because I was talking to someone. But when I try to record anything by myself, it's just the hardest thing. And there's been videos I've done like 20 or something retakes on it, and it still didn't come out perfect. But the funny thing is it seems like when you're not live, you feel like you want to try to make it good, and you keep going back and all this. And if it'd been live, if you messed up, you went with it, not a big deal. But
yeah. One of the things about practical exploitation was that I liked to show. So that's another show that I did, but that I like to show the steps in between everything. And the problem was, for me at least, I'd get 2 steps in and be like, "Oh, I could do this and this. Let me do that." So I start over. I'm like, now I got to intro the whole thing because I'm going to do multiple things. So I intro the whole thing, then do step 1, step 2, step 3A and 3B. I'm like, well, that didn't work because I didn't prep it, right? I didn't get anything ready for it. I'm like, shoot, do I keep it and like redo the intro, or do I like and say it doesn't work, or like, yeah, that's always, because I like the thing about live was that, like, if it doesn't, like you said, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I think that people do appreciate the ability to, and I don't want to get too much on a tangent here, but like, that's one of the things that I will say that I'm starting to miss in like the YouTube and the TikTok era, I guess, is, and it's not really a YouTube era, but like more of a TikTok era, where I like the curated media. I like movies. I like to follow a story along, and this like instant gratification, which is fine. I'm on TikTok too, but like, I really enjoy sitting back and watching something like a creation of a story that was made for you. And so when I watch podcasts or listen to podcasts, if it doesn't have at least a little bit of that, like, here's the start, middle, and end, and I'm not digging on anything here, but like, I like to have that, start, middle, and end to kind of know what I'm getting into. You know what I mean? Like, but there are mediums that this works for. I'm not really trying not to dig on you. Okay, that's killing me. I'm sorry, but like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a time and place for both things.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how people have gotten used to this stuff. That's just, there's a lot of stuff out there that's kind of funny, but there's not the story to it. It's just something funny, and it's amazing to see how some of those things go viral that, someone just goofed around, didn't put any effort into it, but millions of people liked it. But
yeah, I would push back a little bit on there. Like, there's a lot of fake, like, reaction videos, right? Like,
yeah,
there's some behind the scenes stuff that I've seen that it's like, it shows someone's bedroom, and it's all like, and then the dog comes in and jumps and does a thing, and it's like, oh my gosh, he hit his head on the fan or whatever, and then they pull back and it's like a full studio, because like, there's a lot of money in this, and so there's people in studios that are cashing in on it because they can, as long as they make it look authentic, they can get a ton of money on it.
Yeah, I was seeing something like that recently on Instagram. It was these spooky doll episodes or different reactions to people. And if they're doing this, they're going to be seeing a camera, and
Yeah.
then you're going to have to set something up because they're putting some kind of fishing line on it or something to move these dolls. And so they had to see it. But I mean, they do a pretty good job of making it look real. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so,
Go ahead. Sorry.
nah, no, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Um, I was just going to say, I think that's the modern day version of like magazines, right? Like all of these like magazine and like entertainment magazine and stuff like that, that they show the the celebrities and stuff all done up and from a studio shoot or whatever. Um, that's the modern day version of it because like they're showing the reality that they think everyone wants to see. I don't know. I'm just trying to see like it's kind of
Yeah.
in my head. It's making a connection.
Yeah, that's kind of like too. You look at some of the Instagram, and one of the things that makes people appreciate is authenticity, and I think it's important because you see the Instagram view, everything's perfect, and then you got some people out there that especially tough for the younger folks and women that are just seeing these people that have been airbrushed, photoshopped to look perfect or whatever. People don't make mistakes. Their life's perfect, and then you got some of these poor younger folks out there saying, "Man, why can't my life be better?" And they don't realize that whoever's in this picture or this video, it's not perfect either. But
Yeah.
it's kind of good to be able to see the authentic stuff.
Yeah. My kids want to be YouTube stars too. So like,
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to see people like Mr. Beast that are doing all the things that they're doing out there. I mean, it's kind of crazy that some of these people are making the money that they do off of YouTube.
yeah, I mean, good on them. Like that's impressive that they found their niche and that they're successful, right? But
Yeah, it's really kind of interesting with the internet, YouTube, and all that. You think of some of these performers that have kind of launched their careers off, be able to put these music videos and things up before they'd had to give a tape to some producer and see if they like it and all this, and now people can post stuff up on social media, internet, and then they can let the world decide if they like it or not. So that's kind of nice.
yeah,
So what do you think about as far as doing YouTube videos and stuff? Do you think this is very helpful in your opinion to people trying to launch a cybersecurity career?
yeah. So I've had a saying that I've believed in for a long time that it's not. There's a saying out there that everyone knows is not who you know, but or it's not what you know, but who you know. Um, for cybersecurity, for me at least, it feels more like it's not it's not who you know, it's not what you know, it's who knows what you know. And what that means to me is if you are not putting out content or you're not known in the industry, if you're not because cybersecurity is based on trust, right? And if you're coming in with a fresh resume and a smile on your shoulder like that, that there's not an immediate trust there, right? While you can be a trusting person, I don't trust in your skill set to get the job done, and so uh, content is king these days. And so and it has been, right? Like for me, I think that my blog just in general did more for my career than a lot of things. Um, and like when you start in the industry, one of the best things you can ever do is start a blog, a video log, a podcast, something to detail that isn't a lot of work to detail your learning experience. So if you go back in like 2005, 2006 on my blog, like it's like World of Warcraft stuff and learning Tor and all of this real basic non-security stuff. But you can see my progression as I go through and learn more things and share more things. And I think that it's really important for people who are joining the industry to at least produce some kind of content. whatever works best for them. For me, it's writing. For others, it might be video, it might be YouTube, it might be audio, whatever. But when people can hear and listen and see your content, also GitHub works too if you're a developer. But if someone can see and feel and hear your content, then you start to have that trust from people that you've never met. And that can get you jobs, right? Like if I have, and it's not about follower count. It's more about like follower value. I don't know. It's not a good word for it. It's people who like, if I blog about just random things in my life, right? Not a lot of people are going to get a lot out of that. But if I start talking about cybersecurity content or passwords or pen testing content, then those are the people who are going to get stuff out of my content. And those are the people who are potentially hiring managers for me. So, for example, one of the transitions that I've been doing in my life is getting into more cybersecurity leadership versus like red teaming. And so my content has switched a little bit from pen testing and red teaming to more like leadership style. Like these are the things that cybersecurity leaders should do, or these are the things that I've implemented that worked or didn't work, or and I've been reading a lot of leadership books, right? So I think that you control what content you make, and that really can control what path you're going to take, and who's gonna consume that content, and who's gonna look at you for potential jobs. So if you're starting off in the industry, obviously do as best you can on the resume. Like one of the things that people are talking about these days is like, if you don't use AI on your resume, you're not going to get a good job. You're not going to get a lot of callbacks because everybody's using AI on their resumes these days. So use AI to get your resume in place. There's a lot of free services out there to do it. Start creating content now. Don't wait. It's like investing money. Seriously, it's almost exactly like investing money. If you invest, what is it, the $10 when you're 10 years old, you have $1 million when you're 60 years old. The sooner you start investing in yourself by creating content, the better. Even if you are like super shy, right, and super worried that you're going to get stuff wrong, be wrong. It's okay to be wrong. I can't tell you how many things on earlier versions of my blog that are completely wrong. Probably half of them or 80% of them. And that's fine. Like, as long as you are growing and you're open to being told that you're wrong, and that's fine too. Like, that's great. Like, that means I learn. And that was one of the harder things to get over in my career was being open to being told, hey, that's just dead wrong. Because some people are really not nice about it. They're not open. And that's on them to fix them themselves, not you. So you got to take that with a grain of salt for the emotion side of things, and understand that they're, one, giving you a gift, even though they're mean about it, but they're giving you a gift of helping you understand something new. And that's hard to do. That's not always easy to swallow. Yeah, so that would went on for a really long time, but
okay.
Yeah, create content in any way, shape, or form that you can. Be okay with being wrong, and make sure you're doing stuff in the direction that you want to do it in, or that you want your career to go in.
Yeah, great advice. That makes a lot of sense, because one of the things I've seen too, when you're talking about, it doesn't matter the number of followers you have, it's kind of that quality of following, because I've seen some people with 100,000 LinkedIn followers, but they can't find jobs because part of their advice is how to grow your LinkedIn audience. And so if you're wanting to work in cybersecurity, you really should be working in marketing, because that's going to be more valuable to people in marketing. It's valuable to some folks, but as far as hiring managers and helping you get employed is going to be a little more difficult.
Yep.
But I like the things you shared. It's kind of interesting how it's getting more towards people needing to have kind of a portfolio when you talk about the content creation, whether it's a GitHub or whatever platform they like to write on, or create videos and stuff. It's kind of interesting to see a lot of the folks that have got started through just documenting, learning themselves, and kind of turn it eventually into businesses and stuff, and actually broke into cybersecurity from doing that kind of stuff.
I wouldn't say it's starting to do that. I think it's always been that way, really.
Okay.
Like CVEs used to be like, how many CVEs do you have? Like, how many exploits do you have? Like, that's kind of always been the way, the proof method inside of cybersecurity. It's just gotten a little bit more easier, not more easier. That's great. It's gotten easier for people to do, because they can create their own content, right? They don't have to go find a vulnerability to start on their journey.
Yeah, thinking of CVEs and stuff, I'm just kind of curious, because you're in management role and have hired lots of pen testers and red teamers. So which would you value more, a CVE, exploit, or a certification?
Ooh. It really depends on the certification, I would say, and the CVE. If we're talking like they found Log4j, I might give them a job on the spot. But but if it's something, it really depends on this the certification. There's some certifications that I'll say, like the CRTO, that is, for me at least, a very good indicator, because it's all practical application. You can't get that through that certification without being able to do the thing. And I really like that. Where there's a security plus, which means that you kind of have the base knowledge, but I might not hire you for a senior position kind of deal. But getting back to your question, certification over CVE. Probably certification for a red team pen test role. Just because I think it's somewhat easy to get a CVE these days. And I don't know. I just don't value it as much as the proof that you know how to take that CVE or any CVE and turn it into 5 more steps.
So what certifications would you recommend for someone that's wanting to go into offensive security?
So if you're going into offensive security or pen testing, red teaming, again, 0 Point Security's CRTO is really good. That would be the cert that I would look for. If you're just getting in, a Security Plus is good enough, but it's not going to really teach you what you need. It's going to give you some base knowledge. A Plus, Network Plus, Linux Plus, those are all really good as well for base knowledge. There was another one that I just saw the other day. Shoot. I don't remember. It was one out of, I think, Malware Labs. That was another good one. I don't think they have a cert, though. Yeah, I don't know. Outside of the one I already mentioned, OSCP has changed over the years. I'm very much against the try harder mentality. So while I think the OSCP was good for my career, and definitely hits some check boxes on some job descriptions and places. I honestly don't know if it's a good cert or not right now. Just I haven't looked at it in so long. I don't know. But I will say that if you do take that cert and you understand or align with the try harder mentality, you're not going to go very far. Just it's not. I could go on for hours on that whole subject, but cybersecurity is all about knowledge sharing, and someone telling you to try harder, basically saying, "I'm going to keep this knowledge for myself," and that's like a '90s mentality of cybersecurity, and it's not that anymore. So, yeah, sorry to end so abruptly, but
No, not a problem. Just interesting to hear your perspective. So, a lot of people are always asked, do they need to know how to code, scripting or using some kind of programming language to get into cybersecurity? So, what are your thoughts?
Need no, but it helps explain a lot. I'd say, like, I'm not a comp sci major in any way, shape, or form. I think that that anybody can learn, and it's not that scary. And as long as you understand, basic logic, like if this, then that. While this is true, do this. I want to assign a variable to that. Like that is super simple programming, and like I just taught programming to every one of your listeners. Done. But like that's what you need to know for pen testing and red teaming. You need to pick a language. I'm not a big fan of Python, but everyone else seems to be. So Python, Ruby, C#, whatever. Pick a language. Write a simple hello world. Then write something to rename a bunch of files for you. Then write something to parse an nmap script. Write stuff that makes your life easier. And then you learn programming along the way. And all I do for programming, literally, is know what I want the end result to be, and then Google for how to get each step done. So that's my programming skill set. Google.
It's always interesting to hear people's perspectives because, like, I had Lissa Knight on my old podcast, and she says she doesn't code. So it's interesting to see some people at a high level that are really good that don't code, but then again, seeing people that do code, because you see a lot of these folks that do know how to code are creating some pretty cool tools.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to create your own tools, but like, I will say that if I didn't know how to code, or at least didn't know the logic of how code worked, I would not have been as successful as I have been in my tests. So I cannot count. It's probably every time, but between most and every time I've done a pen test, I've had to tweak a script or a program or something to do the thing that I needed to do. My favorite example of all of that is me and Chris Gates, Colonel Onage, were doing a test together, and we were using Meterpreter, and we got onto a box, but it wasn't getting a callback. And we're like, what the heck is going on? And SSL was broken in Metasploit, and no one had noticed for like 3 weeks. Not a single soul. Like no one had reported it an issue. No one had and so we went and found the commit that broke it and fixed it and made the little tweak to the code, and we were back in business, and we reported it, or he reported it and got it fixed. But like, if I didn't know how code worked at least a little bit, or I didn't know how to program at least a little bit, that test would have been over. I would have had to find another solution, right? So, yeah, I think you need to. It's not a requirement to get a job, but I will say that it gets you out of more binds than you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about something that can rename files and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember one of the first scripts I created. It was just a DOS batch file. But back when I used to work for this mortgage company, I was a sysadmin. I was managing the internal and external DNS, and so the external DNS was Linux, and so we had every mortgage lender wanted their own custom domain. So I'd created this batch file that would go through and create these DNS records. So we just copy because they all had like the same IP address. There was just something different as far as the DNS record goes. So I'd just go in and create these, and it was just be able to run that batch file. And I got it from one of our Unix administrators that he had created a command to automatically FTP stuff. So I took that script that he had and modified it to create the DNS records.
Nice. Yeah, I we were doing in something similar. Like there was a guy I used to work with at a previous company. He was moving. He was moving the issues from vulnerabilities. He was moving the issues from a what was it? From an old not GitHub. It was some like SVN. He was using an old SVN with some ticket issues and converting them all over to Jira one by one. And there was like 250 some odd Jira code repository issues, and he couldn't work on anything else because he was literally copying and pasting over to Jira one by one by one by one and making sure everything was right. And he was billing the company for like $200 an hour. And he was, so I sat down with him and wrote a real quick script to convert all of them and he was done within like 15 minutes. So like he was freed up to do all kinds of other things because I could code. And he was going to spend the next 2 months converting all these issues over one by one, copying them, since he couldn't code. And so I think that's a really important, skill set that it just changes your capabilities as a professional.
So we're getting down towards the end of the episode. Is there anything you'd like to share that we didn't discuss?
If we're talking to people that are just entering the industry, I think that imposter syndrome is something that people hear a lot about, and one of the things that I feel is important for people to realize is that two things. One, being the dumbest person in the room is the coolest thing you can ever have in your life. That is something you can only get early on in your career, and it, well, not only, it gets rarer as you go along in your career, and so cherish it while you have it. And it's not a bad thing. The second thing is, if you're ever in a situation where you are the dumbest person in the room and someone belittles you for it or doesn't appreciate you learning or open that up, they're the dick, they're the butthead. It is not on you. So if you put those two things together, you can slay imposter syndrome pretty easily. Because I love being the dumbest person in the room. That means I get to learn from everybody. That means I get to just soak up knowledge left and right. So if you are feeling like you don't know anything, like it clicks for everyone else more than you, if you started at the same time as this other person and they're, jumping levels or getting to do cool things and you're not, don't worry about it, because you get to do your own journey. You get to, you are selecting what you're spending your time on, and they're selecting what they spend their time on, and you don't know what they're going through too. They might be spending 97 hours a day, learning, they might not have kids, or they might not have other responsibilities, or they might have trauma or whatever. Like you have no idea what someone else is going through, so you can't compare yourself to anyone else. And if you do, it's all negative anyways. So do your best, do what you can, keep your mental health as an important aspect of your life. And, be happy with, appreciate what you have, because it goes away pretty quick. Sorry, I got real sentimental there in a second, but yeah, it's
great advice. Yeah, that kind of goes back kind of in line with people saying if you're the smartest person in the room, find another room.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah,
really is.
Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be on my show today. It's a huge honor.
Honor's mine, man. Like, seriously, you've been knocking it out of the park. And it's been really amazing to see your career blossom and grow and do all kinds of things. So if anyone wants an example of what to do, Phillip's the guy. Watch what he does.
Thanks. That means a lot.
I mean it. I'm not just blowing smoke. I really mean it.
I appreciate it. It's nice to be seen and acknowledged. I appreciate it.
No problem. Well, again, thanks for having me, and I hope you have a wonderful day, wonderful night, and to all your viewers / listeners out there, just remember that you are in this life for yourself. Go forth, do good things. Have a great day.
Well, thanks again. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Phillip Wylie Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Phillip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter @Phillip Wylie. Until next time.